This is Smooth 98.1. We love music and we love life. It's a beautiful hump of the week, Wednesday morning. We have great conversations concerning business at 6:30 every single day of the week. This is Business Express on Smooth Breakfast. Ayokunmi here, ready to take you on a journey into what's been going on in the business world. And of course, I won't be having this conversation alone. I won't be doing this on my own because Rotus is joining me for this. Very good morning to you, Rotus. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Ayo. Good morning to you. Good morning to everybody out there. I'd say it's today Wednesday. Yeah, hump of the week
Yep.
Wednesday.
It's a hump of the week Wednesday. It seems like you've lost track of what's going on.
I just it's
You've
too
been so
much. I'm
occupied.
overwhelmed.
I can just imagine. All right, so this morning we're going to be taking a look at Nigeria's inflation, which, according to the numbers, has decelerated for the second month in a row in the month of August. And before we jump right into the details of that, for all our listeners out there, join us on the discussion this morning. Come through on WhatsApp on 0809 440 981 We're also streaming on YouTube. You can catch us there live at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Smooth 981 FM Lagos. All right, let's get into the nitty gritty. And we have inflation figures for the month of August for Nigeria. What do those numbers say?
Yeah, so as you said, we saw a deceleration, inflation easing up a bit in August. So headline was 30, that's year on year, headline inflation 32.15%. And it was 33.4 in July. Food inflation, critically, that was at 37.52 in August. That came down from 39.5. I mean, at one point, I think it was March, June, food inflation already tipped over 40% year on year in Nigeria. Now, last year, so on a month-on-month basis, headline was at 2.22%,
Okay.
coming down from 2.28, food inflation 2.37, easing up from 2.47. I should point out that core inflation did rise though. So year on year, 27.58% from 27.47. That's year on year. Month on month, 2.27 from 2.16. So core inflation is where you strip out volatile food and energy prices. So that's what we saw. But for headline and food, year on year, month on month, the deceleration continues.
Okay. I mean, you know what they say, a win is a win, no matter how small
Yeah.
it actually might be. But that being said, does this effectively mean that prices are coming down or have come down to a degree?
So not really. I mean, the thing is, inflation looks at the pace at which prices are rising. So prices are always rising, right? It's just the pace at which they rise. So it's slowed down from where we were prior. So that's
Okay.
essentially how to look at it. I mean, we can. I mean, we'll get into it. Some food items we have seen we've seen some reduction in some food items. So prices for certain items have come down, but overall, yeah, I still seeing prices trending upwards. It's just that the pace at which they're trending upwards is what inflation is measuring. So that's what we're seeing slowing a bit.
Okay. So what exactly was responsible for that deceleration that we saw? I mean, something must have prompted it.
Yeah, it's mostly from food. So we're in the harvest period. So there is an increase in supply. So you've got a number of foods that have been planted for quite a while, foodstuffs. They've now, ripened, ready for, further processing for consumption and cooking and so on and so forth. So that's where we are. It's the harvest season, and we've got an increase in supply of foodstuffs. So that has actually tempered some certain prices down a bit. So that's one of the main reasons that we're seeing this. So it shows you how much of an impact that food has on the inflation basket.
Okay, now it's very interesting because I mean we've seen a deceleration in the inflationary numbers, but we've seen a rise in the fuel prices. So, what could the possible impact of that be on inflation right now, or isn't that going to have an effect?
Yeah, so I mean, we're looking at August numbers, right? So we are presently in September. And the way the Bureau of Statistics collects their data, I think they collect it, it's on every 2 weeks. So they take the first 2 weeks of a particular month, the last 2 weeks of one month versus the first 2 weeks of the following month. So that's how it's all put together. So September 10th, Tuesday, last week was when the NNPC revised upwards fuel prices from the 600 level to about 855. I mean, we know now this was all done because, Dangote Refinery is ready to sell and so on and so forth. So the question now is when we go into October and we get September's numbers, will we see that impact? So I'm half and half. I think we might, but there are also some asset managers that disagree. I don't think that's the case, but I think we'll. But the thing is, the argument against that is when there was fuel scarcity, which we've been facing for quite a while, prices had already increased on the black market anyway, right? People were already, buying. So is that pump price increase by the NNPC, since people were already purchasing fuel, at a higher price before that, is it that effective? So that's something to consider. So I think I'm leaning towards seeing a slight uptick in inflation when we get the September numbers.
Well, I mean, that is coming from your own perspective. A contrary view is coming from the asset managers, Cardinals, Stone Partners. They don't think fuel will impact inflation much. But what was their thinking coming to that conclusion?
Well, they are leaning on the harvests and the supply of food blunting the impact of fuel prices. They think it will overwhelm it. Also, they've pointed to the transportation of these food items in terms of how they move from the farm. So they're pointing to the fact that diesel trucks are mostly what are used to move them. I mean, it's not a 100% case, but I think it looks like it's more diesel trucks than PMS fueled vehicles that are used to move them. And so that's what they're looking at. But it looks like the harvest is going to play an outsized role in I guess blunting the impact of fuel.
All right, interesting thoughts there. Now let's talk about Nigeria's Monetary Policy Committee that meets next week. Now, what decision do you think they're going to make? Because whenever we talk about the MPC meetings, we're always, trying to figure out will they increase, will they, jack up the rates or not or hold, and it's always like Russian roulette, more or less.
Indeed. So, I mean, I guess they will be looking, I think they will hold rates. I mean, I thought they would do that last time, but I was wrong. They still increase rates by I think it was 25 basis points or so. So I think because they also have to be cognizant of the fuel situation. And will they possibly hike again to try to head off what they anticipate to be an increase in inflation in September? Or will they say, well, you know what, we've seen inflation decelerate now for 2 consecutive reporting periods, so maybe we hold. So either way, it's either they're going to, I think they will hold rates in place. Is it either they hold or they hike again? That's where I'm leaning towards. But I think it's going to be a hold. There's no way there's not going to be a cut. That one, there's no, that's not on the table.
No
But
chance
so
for
it's
a
either a
miracle.
hold or a hike, and I'm going with a hold.
No chance for a miracle.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's going to be, they have to see inflation really easing up. This is the debate that's going on with the U.S. Federal Reserve, the U.S. Central Bank. They are making their decision about 7 p.m. or 6:37 p.m. our time later today. They are definitely going to cut rates. Now, their debate is whether you cut by, 25, 50 basis points or so. So they're in a different, they have had, elevated rates for a while. So for us, our own we're still in a high inflationary environment. And so my thing is, I'm just wondering whether, if not for this fuel price hike, I would have said, okay, it's definitely going to be a hold. They're not going to touch it. They'll leave it as is. But because of that, I might give them cause for concern and say, okay, if we anticipate inflation rising in September, then they might hike. So we'll see what happens. But it's either going to be a hold or a hike.
Mm. All right. Okay. And on a final note here, I mean, we should end this with some wise words. A couple of messages. I'll take them after I ask you this question. And I know you've repeated this advice at different times, but we need to bring it to the fore again. How exactly should Nigerians protect themselves against high inflation?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's foreign exchange, man. You have to diversify. Hopefully people are still trying to find a way to purchase a few dollars here and there on a monthly basis, putting that away. You've seen, I think exchange rate now has risen to about 1,006 levels. So you definitely want to hold some foreign exchange in order to protect your purchasing power.
Hmm. All right, wise words there. Let's take some messages as we round up on the conversation. This is a message from, okay, there's no name attached to it, but it says, I'll suggest that we take the extortion on the highway. This is the way of major cause of food inflation on the roads. Some security agencies and agri take these guys off the roads, and then you would see a huge difference in food
Mm.
prices. All right, thank you for that. Yinka Bolu says, good morning to you, Yinka. He says, I'm not sure there should be a significant impact on the inflation figures for September because if you really look at the trucks that are transporting this, they run on diesel, and diesel has been stable for quite a while now. So I think we should be fine. And Rotus, we're praying for you. We see the good job that you're doing on Twitter, convincing people to choose between affordability and the lines at the fuel station. I owe you two brain bucks. He says, let's not start with the holding FC route as a means against inflation because folks will abuse it. Talking about your advice on holding FX at this time, that folks will
Ah,
abuse it.
duly noted. I appreciate all the messages as always.
All right. Thank you all for coming through. And thank you so much, Rosis, for joining me this morning. Always a great time having you.
Thanks, Ayo. I'll catch you guys. Take it easy.
All right. Once again, thank you all for sending messages in on a Business Express this beautiful Wednesday morning. Keep it tuned to Smooth 98.1. There's more great music to get you ready to get into the papers on Freshly Pressed at 7:30.